opportunity to be here and extend the invitation to me. I really hope that at the end of today's workshop, even though it's the last workshop for the last of the um 10 days workshop we had having, I hope you're going to it's going to be uh probably one of the best that you've had so far. You know what they say, save the best for the last. And hopefully I really hope that that works out. So so I'm going to move right into our presentation for today. But just before I do that, um I actually have like a poll that I will be making use of in the course of this um workshop to get like a feedback. So I would want to test for all participants, is it possible to access this website at this point, like slido.com? And when you get to slido.com, you just type in this as the number. So what is going to happen is at some point in the presentation, I want to get a poll. What I mean, like a poll, I want to get a response from everyone. And so when I ask a question, I would, you just come to slido.com and enter this number. And so the question displays there, and then you enter your own response. By the time you enter your response, it's going to display on our screen, and it's going to give a summary of everybody's response in real time. So it's really going to be fast. The reason is to help me get a feedback so that just try to make it really interactive, even if it's a virtual workshop. So I hope that is like clear. Can we access, can we confirm that we can access slido.com and enter this number? I haven't posted any question yet, but when we get to that point, I'm going to post the questions. But I just want to confirm if we can all access slido.com. Oh, great. Yeah, I can see someone there.
Yes, they can.
Great. Okay. Okay, so good. Awesome. Okay, so that, oh yeah, great. Okay, so yeah, awesome, awesome. Okay, so for now, you are posting your own questions, but at the point when I would want you to make a response to the survey I'm going to send, you would see my question displayed, and then I would need you to type a response. So in that situation, I would want you to type your own question, but instead I want you to answer my question. And when that time comes, I'm going to let you know. So with that being said, I'm going to take us back to presentation for today. So we can come back and focus on the presentation at this point. Um, so we're going to be talking about systems analysis and evaluation. Um, my name is before we move into the workshop in detail, I'm going to talk a little about my background. I'm S.A. Moraye, and I had my bachelor's degree in chemical engineering, and I graduated in 2015. But my zeal and enthusiasm for tech actually led me to into being a software developer, which I started in 2017, and I worked for some 2.5 years as a software developer in Nigeria before moving to the US. And where currently I'm pursuing my master's degree in data science at the George Washington University. At the university, I work as a statistical consultant, where I provide consultation in programming and machine learning to students and staff. But also over the summer, I worked with IBM as a cognitive engineer consultant, primarily like a data scientist, where I solved problem with the New York State government. So yeah, I'm going to resume my second year in school later next month. So that sums my background. I'm someone that really passionate about technology, and that was something that led me to my career. I really hope that at the end of this presentation, you get to understand more what I do and also understand a lot of things around data science. So the agenda for today's presentation, we're going to go through learning objectives and then talk about digital transformation in the 21st century, data-driven world, understanding the importance of data systems, design of database systems and analysis, methods for analysis and evaluation. Then we'll talk about automation. Then we'll delve a little bit into artificial intelligence and machine learning, what it is and what it holds for us. And then we'll talk about the World Economic Forum skills for the future, both from the technical perspective as well as from the non-technical perspective. And then we'll wrap up with the key takeaways. So without wasting time, we'll move into our learning objectives for this workshop is number one, to understand the importance of data in digital transformation. Secondly, to understand the basic concepts of data systems, analysis, and evaluation. And also to gain basic understanding of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And lastly, to learn key skills and jobs in the digital transformation era. And so I've been mentioning digital transformation, and I know most of us will be keen to want to know what digital transformation is. So yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about. There's so much buzz around, like a buzzword, what it really means. But in simplest term, it means reimagining of businesses in the digital age. That's just it. So what this means is we're currently in digital age where information is everywhere. Um, Technology has cut through a lot of things, like have technological devices from mobile to desktop to um, um, smartwatches. So there's a lot of things that are going on, and we have to reimagine business through the lens of through the eyes of these different devices as well as technology as it evolves. And so digital transformation is a process of using these digital technologies to create new or modify existing business processes or customer experience to meet the changing market requirements, because um, times are changing really fast, and then businesses as well as entrepreneurs and young people would have to change the ways in which they do business in order for them to cope and in order for them to adapt to the times. And so that is what is termed digital transformation, the process of using these digital technologies to create new and existing processes. For example, I'm currently in the US, you are in Morocco, but we are able to communicate and having this workshop. Probably 10 years ago, it wasn't possible, but today it's very easy for us to connect. This is as a result of having a tool like Zoom where we can communicate easily and do video sharing and all that. So these are all effects of digital transformation, and it cuts across different industries from healthcare to education to transportation to manufacturing, trade, and commerce are all being transformed digitally, right? Now, there's a difference I need to us to understand. Like there are different steps. There's what we call digitization. There's what we call digitization. There's what we call digitalization, and then there is digital transformation. So the first one, I'm going to start from digitization, which is simply the process of converting information from analog to digital. So say, for example, you have paper records in your office, and then you scan the paper records or you probably type them and put them into a computer file. That is just digitization. And so that's just a process. That does not equate to digital transformation. You just converted that analog to digital, but it's just digitization of that record, right? Now, the next is digitalization, which is the process of using the digitized information to make established ways of working simpler and more efficient. Now, a typical example is you're in your office or as a student, you are now making use, instead of making use of your books or probably notes, paper notes, you are making use of Google Drive or some of all these devices to transform your notes, and then making it simpler and more efficient for you or for a business that you're working with. That is now digitalization, because you are using the digitized information. Now, however, digital transformation, it's like the top level of it, where it changes the way business gets done. And it's most cases, it creates entirely new class of businesses. Um, the emphasis here is on the process in which business is operated to meet the customer's needs. Now I'm going to walk us through a couple of industries, or a couple of um, industries as well as companies that are changing the way in which business is being done. And I hope that some of these companies are companies that you're familiar with, because as much as possible, I try to walk through global companies as well as some companies that I know that are kind of local in Morocco. And so in the healthcare space, you probably heard of Amazon Care, you heard of Metrox, which I believe is in Morocco. Then Helium Health is in Nigeria. These are some of the companies that are leveraging technology to enable health care delivery. And then it makes it really easy for them, for you to solving one or two problems that has been there. And why at the center of it all, you see that science and technology is being used to solve some of these problems. Another in education space, you've heard of probably Coursera, Udacity, or Udemy. These are online platforms where you can access range of courses from technology to science, as well as the arts and liberal arts and what have you. And 10 years ago, most of them were not as active as it is right now, but can now be accessed. These courses, this content can now be accessed globally at this point. And now during this pandemic, a lot of the universities are switching fully online, and some of them are leveraging some of these platforms, creating a new class of business. That's what digital transformation means. In the transportation industry, probably heard of Uber. I know there is a Ruby Taxi, if I got it correctly, and then there's Careem. These are these are platforms that have changed the way transportation, ride hailing, it's in the world, because 10 years ago it was difficult for us to Uber started in 2008, and then people thought it would not even, it didn't make sense. And so these are companies that are working in their sectors that are changing the way in which businesses are being done. In the trade and commerce industry, you've heard of probably Alibaba, Amazon, Shopify. These are also conglomerates, these are global brands that are changing the way in which trade and commerce can be done easily across border international trade. In the finance industry, you probably heard of PayPal, which is like a global payments portal. Um, the Spaystack is a Nigerian and also an African payment processor, as well as Binance, which is like a cryptocurrency exchange platform. These are companies that are still in the wake of digital transformation, are creating new ways for people to enable people to do businesses. And consulting, you've probably heard of IBM. I mentioned that IBM is a global company, and I did my internship with them in one of the subsidiaries. It's IBM Services, and it's focused primarily on consulting. Now, in the enterprise level, when I mean enterprise level, there are other big companies that need digital transformation. And so some of these consulting companies, they are specialized in transforming these other big companies. And so while some companies are focused on the direct customers, some companies are focused on other companies. So some companies have their customers as the end user, which is me and you, while some companies have their customers as other big companies. There are a lot of consulting companies like IBM, Deloitte, and Accenture that have other bigger companies as their customers. And so they are also playing a big role in digital transformation. And so this, at the center of it all these companies are leveraging technology to solve problems for their customer, creating a new way of creating a new process, modifying their existing process of doing business. And this is what constitutes digital transformation in the 21st century. Okay, great. So now, one thing I want us to have understood what digital transformation means. In the wake of so many devices that exist, in the wake of so many devices that exist, okay, so I'm seeing some questions coming in. Please, maybe we'll take all the questions at the same time.
Yes, we can.
Okay, yeah. So in the wake of digital transformation, there are a lot of things that have been happening. A lot of devices are being used. A lot of companies have come on. The internet has opened up a huge way for people to interact. You send emails, we're on Zoom calls, people log on Facebook, you watch movies on Netflix, Snapchat, Google search, you always do a lot of things on Google search. And on the bottom of all this is that everything you do, data is being generated. And this data that is generated is stored somewhere, right? When we are at this point, we are making this call, we're having this workshop, data is being generated on Zoom's server. And then Zoom is storing our video records, is storing our conversation, is storing all chats, is storing it somewhere. And so try to think of it as the user base for Zoom grows, they have more data. And so this is a snapshot of just a minute, what happens in the world in 1 minute. In 1 minute, 1 billion persons are logging on Facebook. In 1 minute, there are 3.8 million search queries on Google. In 1 minute, there are 41.6 million messages sent on WhatsApp. And Snapchat, there are 2.1 million snaps created in just 1 minute. Now think of what would happen in 1 hour. Think of what will happen in 1 week. Think of what will happen in 1 day. And so the data that is being generated, it becomes really very important and needs to be stored somewhere. And they're actually stored in what we call data centers. So this is an example of a data center. Now this is the internal of a data center. It's really highly restricted place where you have servers that are storing data. And then you have to ensure that this data, they are cool. The conditioned, the environment is in a very good condition to ensure that the servers are running well. And this is an example of how a server farm is. Like you have a data, this is an example of a data center, right? Internals. But coming out, this is an overview or an aerial view of a large data center. And so big companies, they keep adding data centers at each point because the more you have customers, the more the more people send data, the more people use apps, the more data is generated, and the more there's a need to store the data. And so there is data everywhere. So now, I want to ask a question. I think this is where we would have our first poll. Why do you think it's important for us? So I'm going to just give me a minute. I'm going to switch to the slides here, and I'm going to ask the first one, why do you think data is important? In your opinion, why is data important? Why is it important that they store this data? So I want you to go to the poll. The poll is active right now. Just go there, you see. Okay, someone said archive, someone said information. As many people that can type, power, okay. Minimize time and cost, okay. Is that all? More efficiency, decision making, cool, great. All things work with data, good. More efficiency, good. Information to understand well consumer needs, great. Benchmarking, okay. These are all great responses. Marketing, great. We have just about okay, more effective. You can know what a client is interested in. Great, awesome, awesome. These are great to understand well. So these are all great responses. It shows that we are all in the same place. Improve people's lives. Great. Okay. So you can keep your answers coming. It seems the thing is interesting about this response is that the more we have same answers, the more like I think two persons have written marketing. That's why we have marketing that is bigger than others, but they're all great answers. So let's move back to the presentation. We can come back and check this. But that leads me to my next slide because we keep asking ourselves, why do you store this data? And then, like we said, some of us have rightly said, understanding the importance of these data systems, like it helps to make informed decisions. Like when you have data, it provides like evidence for you to be able to make correct decisions rather than making assumptions. And it also helps to find solutions to problems because when the data is organized within an organization, we can visualize relationship between what is happening in different locations, departments, or even systems. It also helps to understand business performance. Now, when the business is performing well, it helps to see the strength for you to implement whether the same methods that are working, the ones that are not working. Also, it helps to back up arguments. For example, you need the statistics to understand, oh yeah, why are you proposing an argument for a system change, or why are you proposing an argument for what the changing a particular system. So you need data or statistics to back it up. Also, it helps you to be more strategic because you don't want to be after analyzing data, you want to direct your scarce resources where they are most needed and not channeling to the wrong place. And data helps you to visualize that for you to know what is more important and what is not important. And like we've rightly said, also, it helps to improve people's lives. So by allowing you to measure and take action, like it helps you to enable your organization to improve the quality of people's lives. You know where to direct the resources. So these are just very few of the many reasons why it is important to have data systems. So now we've all understood and now we've established the fact that it is important to have data systems. But how do we make sense out of the data? Because taking a look at this, it doesn't make sense at this point. So how do you make sense out of these data systems that are here? How do you make informed decisions? You can't just walk to this data center and say, oh, I want to make the decision, and the decision comes out. No. So you ask yourself, like, how is this done? This brings us to database design of database systems and analysis. So as much as possible, I want this to be like a very interactive. section, like I said, a workshop, because the workshop is not like a presentation. So I just created where I'm taking it that everyone in this workshop, we are part of a team. So we are part of a team, and we're going to walk through this case study together of an example of a system that we're creating and we're going to analyze, so that at the end of the day, it is my expectation that we'll be able to, going through it together, we'll be able to understand different database systems and how to analyze them. So this case study, it's a healthcare company called Refresh. It's a hypothetical company, so you don't need to Google it. Refresh is a company that provides primary healthcare services to people across 550 locations in Morocco, right? And the services they provide include general practice, maternal health care, community pharmacy, dental care, and optometry. So these are the services that we provide, right? Now, let's take it that we've been um, currently they make use of a very crude way of reporting. Now, take for example, these are some of, if a new patient comes to any of their primary healthcare facilities, the new patient, this is a registration form. This is a sample of their registration form. You can see how bulky it is. This is just page. So it's a little bit, I know it's not really clear here, but let me see. This is page 1 of 13. That will tell you there are 13 pages for the new patients to fill, right? And so bulky. And then you have 13 pages and you have to file them. And then you have probably after like 3 years, you have probably 1,000 patients and you have 1,000 files in just one location, manually sorting it. It's really difficult. There's a lot of inefficiency in such a process. And so it becomes really, really important for us to want to design our tasks. Has been given, all of us in this workshop will be given a task for us to design a database system or a software for them to be able to automate their process. By automation, I mean for them to be able to store patient data and then be able to do a lot of at the end of the day analysis, but most importantly to store the patient's records as well as even the operation of the hospital, of the primary healthcare facility. So now let's go to our second question from the poll. What do you think? What do you think should be the features? What do you think should be the features in this our hospital management solution? I want us to answer this. What features or functionality, what should we be seeing in this hospital management solution? Remember that this hospital management solution is going to be used in all 550 locations. And so what do you think should be the things, like what should be the features or what should be the functions that this software should have, this hospital management solution should have? I think the poll, sorry, yeah, so I think the poll is active. You go to slide.com, slido.com, and okay, so we have valid communication. Great. Okay. Anything else? Internet, privacy of information. Great. Great. Website. Okay. Okay. Just hope accessible from all 55 locations. Okay. Great. Just to make that sure that it's actually 550 locations. So it's even larger than that. But yes, that is true. Mobile application, okay, that's great too. Online services, great. So people can be able to access it online. Um, Support portal for all kinds of people, great. Easy access, great. Internal system for managing patient, awesome. These are all great ideas. So you can see that we are arriving somewhere. Like you begin to think like, oh, we are a team. We're working on this together. So just feel free to talk about all the features and functionalities you would want and to see in such a hospital management solution. Data management system, awesome. This is fantastic. Like, um, so yeah, just for the purpose of time, I think I'll go back to the. But these are all great responses. Easy access, websites, internet, um, patient registration process. Awesome. Yeah, of course, that's what we're talking about. Online services, websites, internet, easy access, um, accessible for all kinds of people, including disabled people, and like accessibility is key. So that's awesome. So I'll move back to our presentation. Okay, so thank you all that participated in that poll. Those are all great responses. And so this is what our design of database, this is what our hospital management solution should look like. You'd have something for appointments and scheduling. So in case you want to make an appointment, you really do not need to go to the primary healthcare center and wait the whole day. And then you would now be told that you can't see the doctor because probably there are a lot of people there. From the comfort of your home, just like we said, easy access, you can actually book an appointment and see if the doctor will be available before even going there, right? Administration and monitoring, the doctor, the hospital managers will be able to monitor the way things are going. Um, Cash or billing center, it's easy for you to print receipts even from your accounts. You can access laboratory tests. You don't have to wait the whole day waiting for your results. Your results can be emailed to you. You can access the pharmacy and just probably pay for everything online and you go there and pick it up. Financial accounts, security control, these are all important things that should be in the hospital management solution. And so in developing this, who are the key stakeholders? Now, the key stakeholders that you need to develop these hospital management solution include number one, the subject matter experts, which in this case is the hospital administrator, the doctors, the nurses, lab technologists, pharmacists. These are all people that are key and they understand the business process because the the processes needs to be incorporated in a software. So you need the people that understand the process to incorporate it, to tell you the process, to describe the process. We're talking about digitalization as well as digital transformation in this case. So we need people with subject matter expert. And then we need a business analyst. A business analyst works closely with these subject matter experts to transform the requirements, which are like the processes, into a document, like a product requirement document, so that it is really easily understandable to the technical people that will build the software. So you can see it's a cross-functional team that needs, like everybody has to play its role. So the business analyst talks with the subject matter experts, understand the needs, collaborates these needs into a document, like a product required document and a proposal, and then share with the software engineers, which includes a front-end engineer, a front-end developer, a back-end engineer, and a DevOps engineer, a user interface or user experience designer, and a solution architect. Now, these some for some systems, there are people, some persons might, if if the solution is really not that large, you can see some persons doubling some positions like front end and back end. But we're building a solution that's going to be used um, in so many hospitals. And so we need a larger team. We need specialization. So that's why we have like a front end engineer, we have a back end engineer, we have a DevOps engineer. DevOps engineer is someone that is focused on ensuring that when the software has been developed, it is running efficiently and it is non-stop. You're not going to have issues with, oh, there's system failure, oh, our system is down. No, this DevOps engineer ensures that it is running optimally as it is running at all time. User interface and experience designer ensures that in the process of building the software, it's very easy and it's very accessible, as well as it is visually appealing to all the users, including the patients as well as the doctors that will be making use of it. The solution architect is someone that has experience in building software, so he knows instead of wasting time to do some trial and errors, the solution architect is someone that architects the application, the software, to give you an insight how to go about building the software. So it's a very key aspect of the team. And so you can see that building a software is not a day's job. It is like everyone has to come together, and this will take probably a long time even. And so why do we have to go through the stress of doing all this? What are the advantages and disadvantages? Now, there's so many advantages to this because one, it improves processes. There are so many things that are redundant that would be improved in the course of doing these processes, right? And so it improves the overall process. Probably you will not have to fill 13 forms, right? It's a 13-page form. So it makes the process really improved. It digitizes the medical records. So these records will be stored digitally, and even in 20 years' time, they can easily be accessed rather than being in a warehouse where you have like paper and cannot be accessed, or it will be difficult to access. But if you have it in a database system, it's easy for you to access the medical records. Facility management, it's easy for the administrator to manage all 550 facilities because you can see, oh, how's this facility doing? How's this one doing? Okay, no, this doctor has to be here. No, this doctor, they are short of doctors here. You know, that is very important. It's less time consuming in the sense that the patient can fill the form even before coming. And so everybody understands like it's very easy. Patient self-care is almost kind of related to less time consuming because the patient can even attend to himself or herself before coming to the hospital. Or if even there's a need for coming, maybe after putting in the symptoms, they will know like, okay, there's no need for you to come. This is what you should take. We'll send your drugs home to you. Financial control and planning. This is very important for the business to grow because this is still a business, healthcare startup, a healthcare company. So we need to make money in order for the business to grow. And it gives access to analytical company capabilities of the business purpose. So we can be able to analyze different things in the business to know where is lacking, where should we be channeling our resources to instead of making assumptions. Like you remember what we said, the importance of data. We wouldn't want to make assumptions. We want to be able to know, we want to be able to find problems and solve the problem. So with this system, it will be easier to analyze the different aspects for business purposes. Now, as much as there are so many advantages, there might be some disadvantages. Cost of setup is high. Like sometimes to get this thing up and running, you have to hire experienced developers, software engineers, as well as even the resources of maintaining the system is quite high. And also sometimes the lack of technical know-how of how to use the system. You can't expect someone that is in the rural area to probably know that doesn't have so much digital literacy to know how to use the system. So sometimes it's difficult. But the most important thing is that in the long run, the benefits far outweighs the disadvantages. So it is important that we design such systems. Okay, great. So at this point, let me see if there's some questions that I can take. Let me stop at this point to take some questions.
Yes, of course, you can check the Q&A section.
Oh, okay, maybe we'll take it at the end, right? Okay. At the Q&A section. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just continue.
Okay.
Now, we built our solution, kudos to everyone on the team. We've done a great job of building a solution, and we've deployed it, and all 550 primary healthcare centers are using it all over the country, and they've been using it for 5 years now. So patients have been going in, they don't have problems with using it. They have little problems maybe for the first 2 years, but now everyone is using it. Now, how useful is it? Does it just make sense for us to have the software? There are many other things we can, like we said, there are other advantages that we can make use of, especially in terms of access to analytical capabilities for business purposes. We want to know how the business is doing. We want to know where to channel the resources to. That is what brings us to the aspect of analysis of systems. How do we analyze systems? So let's look at this case study together again. There are some key questions. Let's ask some questions, some possible questions in that. We are still in the same thing, right? It says, we want to know what provinces generate the most revenue. Yeah, from my understanding, there are about 62 provinces in Morocco. And then we want to know, we have 550 locations, right? And then what provinces generates the most revenue? Maybe we want to see how we can prioritize those for us to ensure that we don't have any issues with that area so that we can always have money. What region has the most patients? What region has the most patients? Is there a relationship between locations with most patients and those with most revenue? These are questions that ordinarily you won't be able to answer, but because you have data that is backed up, right? And you have like 5 years worth of digitized data, it is easy for you to come in and see how you can analyze these systems, fetch your data and analyze the systems to answer these questions. There are also some other questions. These first questions I mentioned, they are what we call exploratory questions, because you just want to know what province generates the most revenue, what region has the most patients. Is there a relationship between locations with most patients and most revenue, right? But then let's take it a little bit higher. How about predictive questions? Like, what is the projected revenue for 2019 fiscal year? Or how can we minimize the cost of operation? Now, these are things that probably you just come and say, okay, you don't have to make irrational decisions. With your data, you can you can remember one of the importance of data is for us to make informed decisions. So, and this is where modeling comes in. So in the next couple of slides, I'm going to show you the process it takes for us to analyze such data to arrive at such questions. Now, these questions are really like diverse. So I'm going to take it like just really few. So we'll start with the exploratory questions. You just want to know why or what if it exists. So the exploratory questions we made mention of, like what provinces generates the most revenue, what region has the most property patients. Now, it would have been possible, it is possible that you have something like a dashboard that gives you a summary, right? It gives the summary of it was built into the software. So some analytical capabilities were built into the software that just from the administrator dashboard, the administrator can see some statistics like number of patients in this region, and it can do some selections and understand what is going, look at the charts to see, oh, are we in February, did we increase or did we reduce? You understand, to understand what is really happening to make decisions. However, it's always when you have something that is like this, that was built into the software, sometimes you get limited because you sometimes do not have answers to some questions on this dashboard, because at the time of development, they maybe did not, the management of the company, of the healthcare company, did not anticipate such questions. So remember that this is 5 years after the software has been built, and it doesn't make good business decision for you to go back and rebuild the software on this dashboard. So one way you can do this is to make use of the data that is stored already, your raw data, and try to use the raw data to answer the questions. That is where a data analyst or a data scientist comes in. So these are the method. This is the methods we use for analysis and evaluation. So a data analyst or a data scientist comes in, it brings in the raw data, it does some data pre-processing. By pre-processing, it means removing, maybe looking for issues with the data. Maybe the data is not, you understand, it's probably where how it is, wants to know if the data is in the right state it should be. So it does some data pre-processing. And then he makes sure he does like a clean and structured data. And then using his own skills, is able to manipulate the data to do some form of exploratory data analysis to answer our questions of where is the most province, those questions that are not apparent, that are not showing on the dashboard. And so at the end of the day, he might probably plot graphs or just plot charts to understand what is going on. And some of the tools and technology used by the data analyst and or the data scientist includes, it could be the inbuilt dashboard. If the inbuilt dashboard has the answer to the question, of course, there is no point going back digging in deep. So you could just probably use that. Alternatively, he or she could use Microsoft Excel, Power BI, SAS, which is statistical analytical software, or Python or R programming languages that are hosted on platforms like using Spark or Hadoop. These are like tools and technologies that can be used for analysis. And so that is the primary work of the data analyst or data scientist. There are techniques, there are tools that can be used for doing in-depth analysis to answer these questions. Now, this is for the exploratory questions, right? Now let's move over to the predictive questions. So let's look at predictive analysis. It's a bit different because in predictive analysis, you need to involve a model. You need to bring in a model, an algorithm that will probably model the data to understand the pattern that is in the data to answer your question. So say, for example, a typical predictive question in our case is, how can we minimize the cost of operations for 2020 fiscal year? Now, coronavirus, there's a pandemic currently going on, and they're looking at, oh, now, you got the management of the company comes and say, oh, team is giving us this job to try to see how we can minimize the cost of operation, that there's no money, you understand, and things are really going bad. So we are about 57 on this workshop at this point, 7 attendees. We've been given the objective to minimize cost of operation. This is our objective. And then typically what you would do is, what do we need to do? That is your goal, to minimize cost of operation. And what are the constraints? What are the things? Under what condition do we need to minimize this cost of operation? Number one, coronavirus has put hospitals at maximum capacity. Therefore means that meaning all 550 locations are maximum capacity because people are constantly there. Probably they've all turned into isolation centers. We are not even sure, right? Then ensure the safety of all workers and patients. This means that we would all our workers, all doctors and nurses on the field needs to have proper PPEs, personal protective equipment, as well as gloves and everything they need to be assured. So these are things that should not be negotiated when you're cutting the cost of operation. These are the constraints. And your expected outputs or our expected output is the expected cost of operation, the reduced cost of operation. So before coronavirus, they probably had for the past 5 years, there is a running cost of operation that has been going on. But because of coronavirus, because of the way things are, management has told all 57 of us to find a way to bring a model, to bring a reduced cost of operation. And this is what we're doing now. Under this constraint, our expected output is a reduced cost of operation. But also, how do we evaluate? Question now is how do we evaluate our reduced cost? How do we check if it is really reduced or if it makes sense? Now, this is a lot subjective. There is no standard way of doing this. It's based on the problem, like on a case by case basis. So in this case, we could say, let us compare with, say, a historical year, one of our old years that had the worst business disruption, where we had the lowest revenue. And so let's see what's the worst revenue that we've had, or what's the worst cost of operation that we've had years back that we had to cut down cost. And let us see if our results that we're getting is kind of similar to that one. So now this process, like I said, it's kind of complex, but it is summarized in this process here. So you start with the business understanding. As a data scientist, first thing you do the first thing you do is to start with the business understanding. If you don't understand the business, there's no need to even start touching the data. So the data scientists, that's why we're trying to collaborate. You talk to the subject matter expert, you talk to the administrator to understand that, oh, these are the constraints. This is what you want us to do, right? But these are the constraints. And this is what you expect to come out. And so you start with the business understanding. And then you move to the data understanding, which means going to where the data is stored and try to understand what data is there. And then you pull in the relevant data and do some form of data preparation to understand your data better. And after doing that, you move to modeling, which is like using different algorithms to try to see how you can achieve your objective of minimizing the cost of operation. So there are several algorithms which I'm going to be showing to you guys in the next slide that can be used depending on the problem you're solving. But then, like I said, you can see that this arrow is going back and forth because it's not a straightforward procedure. Sometimes after modeling, you come back and prepare your data again, do some analysis, and you come back until you get almost like a very good result. And then after you feel like you've gotten a good result, you now evaluate. Now, there are two things that happens after evaluation. If your evaluation is good, you send it back to the management for them to understand, like a business understanding again. And if the management says, no, this is not good, you go back to the other. So it's like it's an iterative process. It's not something most times it is not a definitive process. You have to maybe iterate, do it over again until you get a certifiable answer because you need to keep asking the right questions at each point. There are some cases where the model need to be deployed to production. When we mean deploy, means this is a different case where you have maybe I will talk about this later on when we're talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning. But for now, just know that sometimes your model needs to be deployed. However, in our own case, we just need to evaluate the model and talk back to our management to tell them, oh, okay, we think this is the reduced cost, this is our output. It doesn't make sense. Oh, they are saying no, it doesn't make sense. Also, we are going back. All 57 of us would have to repeat our work. And it's all iterative. Now, for some of the algorithms, common algorithms used for modeling, this is not compulsory really. I just put this for the for people that maybe are really technical, but if you do not understand this, these are really fancy names. But if you do not really, it's not really compulsory for you to like know this at this point, except you're going deep. This is like technical. So there's what we call supervised learning. We have linear regression, random forest, k-nearest neighbors. For classification, you have logistic regression, support vector machines. For clustering, you have k-means. For association, you have appropriate algorithms. Like I said, this is for the modeling stage. These are examples of algorithms that you can use for model your data, depending on the problem you're solving. That being said, this a another way of representing what I've just we just done, like a typical a data scientist or a machine learning engineer would do this, is getting the raw data, reprocessing it, just like the data analysts had done before, cleaning it and structuring the data, doing the exploratory data analysis, and it could just generate a report, right? Or could build a model, predict the minimum reduced cost of production, and build a data-driven product. So, but just so that you don't get confused, this is similar to what we just said in the previous slide. It is still the whole cyclic process of understanding what you're doing, your objective to have a minimum cost. And these are some of the tools and technologies that are used. Power BI, statistical analytical software, Python or R programming languages, machine learning, which is a subfield of artificial intelligence. Now, sometimes you can use Excel, but it's not efficient when you are dealing with so much large amount of data. So that is one thing that is really important. So at the end of our analysis together, because we're not doing it, this is not a technical session, so we're not doing like the programming and all that. At the end of our analysis and model building, our expected reduced cost of operation is now $500,000. And initially, they had budgeted $625,000 for the year. So if you subtract it, it means that we've saved the company $125,000, which is good and huge. So it is not like, oh yeah, the management has said, oh, great job, guys. We have accepted this. This is a good job you've done. Thank you very much. So this is a typical example of what a data scientist or a machine learning engineer does. You solve problems in a company. Oh, we need to do, they ask a question. You think of, okay, how do I solve this? How do I answer this question? And then you dig into the data, trying to do some analysis. Does this analysis require modeling? Bring in the right algorithm, use it to solve the problem, and then present your report or present your answers, especially when it affects the direct bottom line, the life wire of the company. So I'm going to stop at this point and take some questions before I continue, because this is like the first part. The remaining part of the presentation, it's just, let me see. Okay, so just pardon me, I'm sorry for that. Let me just go ahead with completing the presentation.
Do you want me to read the questions for you? Easy.
Well, I was thinking for a better flow, maybe we could just go through the presentation. I have just a few more slides, and then we'll take all the questions together.
Okay.
All right. So now we've done a great job of doing this, right? And now you remember that we started with building. We've done a really fantastic job because we started with this company, Refresh Health, using papers, right? They were all using papers to collect data. And now we built a solution for them to manage, like the hospital management solution, right? And we built that solution. And even after building solution 5 years down the line, we've come back and we've brought a lot of insight from the data and used this to predict how much should be the reduced cost of operation in 2020, which is a year hit by pandemic. But this approach is kind of reactive. When I mean reactive, it is reactive in the sense that um, I'm going to, at this point, I want to tell you about the paradigm shift that is happening right now in the world in software. There is a shift that is happening in the sense that um, companies are trying to predict as much as possible before this kind of things happen. So yeah, everyone is trying to infuse some form of intelligence into the system. And so you don't have to wait to have to build a system and when you have a problem before you go in and dig in your data. You want your system to be able to detect it itself, to be more proactive rather than being reactive. And it should be automated, which brings us to the future of work. Even if this is what is happening right now, I'm talking about what is even becoming like a game changer. Automation. Automation is huge right now. A lot of things are being automated. Now, automation, what we've done for Refresh Health, what we've all done, fantastic book we've just done for Refresh Health, it's part of automation, but it's automation software 1.0 in the sense that instructions are written to the computer to perform tasks and operation. So you program the system, you build the software, you use software programming. So maybe we use Python or we use a programming language, a website, build a website. So we had to hard code the rules and then fed it into the computer system. And in the process of building, using the system, we are generating data. This is software 1.0. Now, what is being implemented, or what we are trying to do in these days in digital transformation is where everyone is moving towards software 2.0, which is a computer is trained to teach itself how to perform tasks and operations. This brings us to what we hear of artificial intelligence, machine learning. These are words that we've heard before now. And these are like bogus words. And what that means is you are feeding data into the computer system, and the computer system would now learn using the algorithms that it has, would now learn the pattern inside the data and use it to generate rules for it to operate. It's like the reverse of what used to be for software 1.0. This is actually very interesting. Now, software 1.0 automation is really great, but software 2.0 is even more awesome. And so that brings me to definition. What is artificial intelligence and what is machine learning? These are all broad words that probably have been hearing for a long time. So I just want to break it down to see how we can understand it really well. If you have any questions, keep putting them there. I'm going to answer all of them at the end of the session. And so artificial intelligence is an area of computer science, area of studying computer science that focuses on creating systems that perform tasks that require human intelligence. In essence, it involves like decision making, things like speech recognition, things that are close to human intelligence that human beings can be able to do. We're not trying to infuse it to computers to perform such tasks that human beings can normally do. So it could be visual perception, which is like trying to see. You've seen decision making, trying to automate decision making, that the computer should be the one to make the decision itself without you telling it to make the decision, or without you digging into the data. The computer should find the data itself, dig into the data itself, and then solve the problem itself. Speech recognition, being able to understand what human beings are saying, translate it, understand it, and then respond. These are all areas of artificial intelligence. Then what is machine learning? Machine learning is a type of artificial intelligence, or I would say it's a subfield of artificial intelligence that deals with the science of getting computers to act without being explicitly programmed. Now, like I mentioned, in software 1.0, you have to program the computer, and then it has to do what you told him to do. Outside those instructions given to the computer, it cannot carry out other tasks. However, in software 2.0, we are feeding the system with enough data for it to be able to make decisions on its own. So even the tasks that he has not seen before, the computer will be able, the machine will be able to learn it and then be able to, which is what we call explicitly programming. So we are not programming, giving it direct instructions. It's learning by itself from the data, understanding the pattern to generate the rules to solve problems. Now, there are so many applications of artificial intelligence and machine learning that we are seeing already today. It's everywhere around us. It might seem like this is far-fetched, but it is everywhere around us in so many applications we're using. Which brings me to the third poll for today. I want you all to, let's go back to our poll and see. Give me examples of AI systems you know, or machine learning systems you know. I just want to have a rough idea. What are the examples of machine learning or AI systems that you know, or you've seen, or what you think has anything intelligence or machine learning? Anybody? ATMs. Okay, great. Okay. Ads. Awesome. Yeah, all ads. I love that. Yeah, ads. Targeted ads, especially targeted ads. Keep them coming. Don't be free to type anything. It's not an exam. I'm not taking records of your scores, right? So just Alexa, yeah, awesome. That's speech recognition. We mentioned that earlier on. Alexa. Targeted advertising, great. Self-driving cars, awesome. Autonomous driving. Siri, yeah, exactly. Speech recognition for Siri in iPhones. Um, any more examples? Chatbots, awesome. Chatbots, content recommendation, great. These are great. I love this. Google Lens, great. Google Assistance, great. Tesla, yeah, they're using self-driving cars still. Google predictive recommendations. Pandora, okay. I hope I'm not missing anyone. So I'm seeing Tesla again. Siri's there again. Face recognition to unlock your phone. Awesome. I'm really glad that you can recognize some of these things. CRM, yes. So yeah, a lot of CRMs that do have like chatbots as well as other smart devices. So your smartphone even has a lot of things. Netflix, great. I think I'm happy to see that. Amazon, yeah, Amazon uses that also. Okay, maybe one or two more, and before I move back to the slides. Oh, there's Amazon there again. NASA, JPL, okay, and Spotify, awesome. Yeah, that's great. Online banking, great, great. Um, awesome. These are all great. Facial recognition, that's it. These are all great answers. I'm really happy to Lyft and Uber. Great. So I think that makes my work easier. So so here are some examples of applications of AI and machine learning. Like we mentioned Netflix. When you sign up, you're told to, if for those of you that have signed up to Netflix, you sign up and you're told to choose your preferences. It takes your preferences and uses a recommendation algorithm to map your user preferences to suggest the kind of movies that you would want. And based on the movies that you keep on watching, it gets better. It learns to know, it learns your preferences so that it will recommend your genre of movies. Um, that's what happens also in Amazon. In Amazon, from your purchase history, from your viewing history, it takes those data together and uses it to predict or to recommend your shopping, like in your homepage. They use the sentiment algorithms or models that are used in detecting toxic comments. I'm sorry, this is like comments, not comics, and fact checking, especially on like social media like Facebook and Twitter, where you have a lot of fake news. So they use these algorithms to check, like to see if it's positive comment or negative comment, and then they flag it before a human reader would look at if it is appropriate or not appropriate. These are some of the applications of sentiment algorithms. The AI chatbots, they're becoming really, really smart these days. You sometimes not be able to differentiate when a human is chatting with you and an AI is chatting with you. Object and face detection in image filters, like in Instagram. If you go to Instagram stories, able to detect your face and all that. These are all applications of machine learning. Language translation is very easy for us. 10 years ago, it was difficult for you to translate on Facebook a post, but now on Twitter or Facebook, if someone posts something in Arabic, you could just hit the translate button and then it translates it to your own language, right? And so these are some of the, so when people talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning, thinking it's like, oh, in 20 years time, it's still coming and all that. No, it's already here. It's all around us. It's been, and this is software 2.0 we're talking about because it is infused in the product. You don't have to wait for it. You need to make it, the data that it fetches from you, the users, is used to make it better. And so the computer is able to learn better and become smarter. The software is going to become better and going to become smarter. These are like, this is just a handful of applications. Trust me, there are so many applications of machine learning algorithms in different products that we use. And so to wrap it up, let's talk about the, we know this workshop's all about skills for skills. Like uh, we've talked about a lot of technologies. We've even gone around together building a whole system, right? Building a whole startup, like a whole hospital management solution for a company. And we are now thinking like, what are really the skills? What are the skills that we should be looking out for as young people in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years, in the next 4 years? Because we're talking about digital transformation. As there is transformation in digital era, new jobs are being created, and while some are becoming obsolete. And the World Economic Forum 2018 report, Future of Jobs report, predicts that 2022, the top 10 emerging jobs or emerging roles will be data analyst and scientist, AI and machine learning specialist, general and operation managers, software and application developers and analysts, sales and marketing professionals, big data specialists, digital transformation specialists, new technology specialists, organization development specialists, information technology services. And the ones that will be declining include data entry clerk, accounting, bookkeeping, payroll, because you can see some of these things are repetitive tasks that can be automated easily. Assembly and factory workers, business services and administration managers, anything that can be automated will become obsolete or will be declining in time to come. And so it becomes really important for us to, as young people, to see how you could strategize to see, oh, how do I fit in? Or what's my strategy? This is where I am right now, but how can I upskill to get to where I want to partake in the digital transformation era? And besides these being the top 10 emerging roles, they are actually high-paying jobs also. To be a very good machine learning engineer, it's huge. It's not easy at the same time, but they're very few, and so they are very high-paying jobs also. So so that's for like the core technical skills. But beyond the jobs, those are the core jobs, right? But beyond the core jobs, let's look at the core skills. Growing skills, according to World Economic Forum, it's analytical thinking and innovation, active learning and learning strategies, creativity, originality, initiative, technology design and programming, critical thinking, which I believe are the different um, topics for this workshop. And that's one reason why I really appreciate the more initiative for putting up this workshop, because these are these are setting you up for success already. So these are the growing skills. And if you've attended the whole workshop, it means that you've probably had an idea of the growing skills and to see which one fits you very well for you to probably lean on. And then these are the declining skills: manual dexterity, memory. These are things that are being easily automated and can really be controlled. Now, having said all this, uh, I'm going to, I'm wrapping up my presentation, but before I do, what are the key takeaways from this presentation? I know we've said a lot. We started with talking about digital transformation, and then we talked about the importance of data, and then we started looking at how we build our own data, build our own hospital management solution, and then we moved on to build our own solution for our company, healthcare company, and then we moved on to doing analysis and moving on from software 1.0 to 2.0 and understanding artificial intelligence and machine learning. Well, it might be a lot to pack in this 1 hour, 30-minute section. And so the key takeaways, if you want to know the key takeaways from this presentation, digital transformation involves using these new technologies to create or modify business processes, customer experience to meet the market needs. Now, at the bedrock, if there's nothing you've not gotten from this presentation, you will get from this presentation, it's data is the bedrock of effective digital transformation. Without data, there's no way you can even train your computer to be able to make decisions on itself or to be able to make informed decisions. Like, we understand the importance of data. Also, a cross-functional team of technical and non-technical professionals engage in designing, development, and analysis of data systems. And there's a growing demand for more technical personnel to fill all the newly created jobs brought about by digital transformation. And I hope that this past approximately 1 or 30 minutes has really been, you've been able to understand at least the bedrock of each of these takeaways and see how you can lean on any of them. And thank you so much for having me. And I would leave it open to questions.
Wow, SA, thank you so much. You just summed it all up at the end and saying the importance of the having an overview about all the skills that are required in the future because jobs are changing. Some of them are declining, others are getting invented. So we are prepared and taking the steps now of having us for all those 10 days was very challenging. And I'm so proud of all of you and the whole team. More and Skills for Skills are proud of you. So thank you so much for staying eager to learn more, and we will come back to you all for with the more interesting facts that we will transform to workshops, of course inspired from the report of the future of jobs by the World Economic Forum. And now let's move on to questions. Issei, we can read the questions. We can read
Oh
them.
yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. The first question here says, okay, do you want to read the questions?
Yeah, of course. She says data scientist or data analyst. What is the difference between the two?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question because there is now one thing I want us to understand is that a data analyst or a data scientist, a data science as a field is an emerging field, and so it's really difficult sometimes to draw a line between the roles that are coming up. But if I'm to sum up what you from the experiment, from what we just done, the data analyst, the data scientist is a data analyst, but a data analyst is not a data scientist. And this is what I mean. A data analyst does draw insight from the data. And so you go in, you bring in data, insight from the data, you prepare the report, and so you send it back to the management. However, the data analyst does not carry out roles like in most case scenario, data analyst does not carry out modeling, which involves using algorithms or advanced algorithms. It has little understanding of how these algorithms work to make use of these algorithms to do some predictions. And so the job of the data scientist, which also understands the role of the data analyst, but is primarily focused on and is experienced with building models to be able to make predictions as well as be able to deploy the models to intelligence systems like software 2.0 that we talked about. That's the major difference.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And I hope that Afif and Qatar, you got your answers. We move to another question. It's from Suhaila. Speaking of method for analysis and evaluation, did you mean the UML?
Uh, Method for analysis, and do you need UML? So by UML,
Unified
can you
Modeling
help?
Language.
I'm sorry?
She's asking about Unified Modeling Language.
Oh, yeah. So, okay. So methods for analysis and evaluation. So, okay, for unified model. Now, okay, that's for designing you use your UML for designing, like for data modeling when designing a database. However, the modeling I'm talking about here is for predictive modeling. The UML diagrams and your UML you do, it's when you are designing the software and you have to like create a data model and use a UML diagram to like understand the relationships and everything within your different tables in your database design. And that was what we did when we started our software for the hospital management solution. However, down the line, say after like 2 years, 3 years, when we're now given the task for us to minimize the cost, the type of modeling we're doing there, it's not the UML type. It is now modeling, like advanced modeling using machine learning algorithms, as well as other mathematical models. So that's basically it's a lot of mathematics. So the algorithm is from mathematics.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope, Suhaila, you got your answer. If not, you can type your reflections around it. We have another question from Intisar. She says, according to you, how can we design a database that can help us understand better the flow of things inside small organizations? What are the first steps that we should take?
Okay, great. Um, so yeah, I'll start with the last question. What are the first steps that you should take? The first step you should take is to understand all the requirements. Like, what do you want to achieve? That's the first question you should have. What's the essence of achieving it? What's the essence of designing that system? That will help you, that will drive you to know the different persona. I mean, by persona, I mean, you know the different user stories. And from the user stories, you'll be able to develop what we call the features and the functionalities that needs to be implemented in that system that you're designing. And based on the functionalities and features, you will now be able to generate what we call the tables to that will be in the database. So the first step is to understand your idea. What is the objective? The second step is to understand the user stories. Who are the people involved and what is their story? From the user story, you can now generate the functionalities and the features that will be used by the different players in the story. And then you can move on to building the database, which you can get from the different functionalities that we've listed. So for example, we are talking about patient data. It therefore means that we need to have a table that has something to do with patients, right? We need to have a table that has to do with illnesses. These are just vague ideas, but you get the idea what I mean, because you need to always start from the idea, the objective, move on to your your user stories and all the people that are involved, and then move on to the functionalities that you're building, and then you can now determine what would be in your database design.
Thank you so much. It's more clearer now. We have another question from Fatima Zahra Shakib. She asks, what's your opinion about the future of medical diagnostics using IT tools and robots? Will it be more performant and relevant than doctors' diagnostics? Then how to set those IT database automatically?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question, and it's really about it being performant than being more relevant than doctors is something that at this point has not really been attained. But if I'm to give you a direct answer, I feel like it's just with time, we're eventually going to get there. Because like I said, a lot of technologies as well as a lot of data is being accumulated now that would help the system to learn. And when the system learns, when a computer learns, it would start being performant, I believe, or in terms of also in diagnostics into than even doctors. But at this point, it's not something that it's 100% certain.
Okay, thank you so much. And we got another question. Okay, from Abdelaziz, he asks, data has been a big argument inside the American Congress, especially those last years, with the companies like Amazon, Facebook, Google, and Apple. With those issues aligned, and I mentioned data privacy, which is people's primary right. Is it going to influence our use of digital tools, or is it only slow phase not to worry about?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is a very big issue, data privacy, because as much as we're talking about we're all excited about the different tools that are coming up, there is a very serious concern about how much data that is being harnessed and how some of these companies exploit their users to mine a lot of data that are not they are not given explicit permission to. for their own use and sell to third-party companies just because they want to make money. So it's something that should be of serious concern, not just for the government, but for you have to protect yourself also as an individual. You have to have your own, in quotes, data privacy policies. For example, you could decide to turn off personalization of ads on Facebook. You know, there is a way you can set Facebook to not use your data for their algorithms, to power their algorithms, targeted ads algorithms. You can also do that on Google. You can do that on, yeah, I think you can do that on Instagram also. But sometimes we don't know, we just leave it at the mercy of, oh, the Congress or probably the government. So yes, it's something that we should be worried about because a lot of people are um, having besides selling the data to other companies, the data are being stored, and sometimes some very sensitive information can be stored somewhere. And there have been cases of data breach. And so when there is data breach, people can have access to very sensitive information that can be used to wipe bank accounts probably, or these are serious issues. So I want to talk about data privacy. It is something that it's very, very important, and um, we as individuals should also take our own measures to protect ourselves, as well as the government takes their own measures to protect us. But that's it.
Mhm. Thank you so much. I understand it. I hope that Abdulaziz, you got your answer. We have another question. Uh, she asks, or he asks, how to switch from accounting and finance to digital. Maybe because accounting was one of the tasks that is declining in the future. So this person is concerned.
Okay, so yeah, so accounting and finance. So the thing is, the interesting about it is, even if these fields are declining, the domain experience that you've had probably in accounting and finance are also transferable. So let's say, for example, there's what we call, if you heard of fintech companies, there are a lot of financial technology companies right now, and they need people with even this background in accounting and finance. And so it makes you become very powerful if they need you more when you have the background in accounting and finance and you now have added technological skills. And so, yes, if you want to switch completely, that is perfectly okay to switch to tech completely or digital, like you said, if you want to switch. However, there is still a bridge in financial technology companies like PayPal, like I mentioned, Paystack, and all of them. These are companies that, with your accounting and finance background, you can even help in making certain decisions if you are in the tech space, if you want to take some time to learn some skills. So yeah, there are two ways. One is either you switch completely to tech, like taking courses online like Udemy, um, um, Udacity, Coursera, and like if you notice in my background, I studied chemical engineering, but now I'm a computer scientist. It was because of I made a switch also from my first degree to tech, and so it's totally possible. And then there is the other option of you maintaining a bridge between your background that you had before and also leveraging tech. So it's not like the job is going to be wiped out completely. Yes, it might be wiped out completely, but there is a way you can leverage that background if you want to. However, you can always upskill using any of these platforms I just mentioned, Coursera, Udemy, or Udacity. Those are like the three platforms that I use for upskilling.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, they are great learning platforms indeed. And we have one last question, and maybe you already answered to it. She's asking, as a data scientist, we will be able to make change in healthcare system, or should we learn more about medicine to help? If we should follow a program or another career, could you please mention it?
Okay, so yeah, this is a great question. One thing about being a data scientist is um, it depends. So there are two types of data scientists. There is, generally, most times, there are like two types. There are the data scientists we call generalists, and there are those who call specialists. The generalists are people that understand the technologies and they can move from domain to solve problems, but they are deep in the technologies. So like I told you, over the summer, I worked with IBM in New York, and I worked in the public market sector, and I worked in the New York State government. And the problem I was solving there was something I hadn't done before, but I had to speak with the subject matter expert, which was in kind of like law. And then I had to use my tools and technologies and my expertise to bring about results. So you don't work in isolation as a data scientist. You always work with your subject matter expert. However, if you want to become a specialist and decide to say, oh, I want to specialize in one aspect of medicine, probably I want to specialize in one part of healthcare and be a data scientist, like a specialist, that is also a possible career path. So both are open. It depends on the individual. What do you want? Is there an area in healthcare that you want to specialize that and that in order for you to achieve that, it requires that you need some domain knowledge. By domain knowledge, I mean healthcare knowledge for you to be able to do that, then you can go for it. But if it doesn't require you having that deep domain knowledge, you can always partner or collaborate with someone in that area to ask the right questions while you focus on your tools and your technologies so that both of you can arrive at the same objective. That is the most important thing.
Thank you so much. Really great questions, everybody. We finished all the 10 questions essay. Thank you so much.